it's not there as a fashion statement or anything. Like I have a gun that I hope I would never have to use.
Mhm.
But if that ever does come to it, I will use it.
I'll
But
be happy to use it.
did you guys hear about the fatal shooting of the I think it's a young teenager in Chicago?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Adam Toledo.
Yep. Have you guys seen the video at all?
Yeah.
Rough.
It's pretty shitty.
Do you guys think that from my point, right, watching the video?
No, but don't give your opinion right away. You're gonna bake the argument right in.
You gotta.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I'm interested. I am interested, right? If you put yourself in the shoes of the police officer, watching the video, seeing how it went down, what like, just quick go around. Like, did you think that? I know in retrospect, it's like he killed a 13-year-old kid, right? So it's like it's wrong, right? You would hope in a world that 13-year-old kids aren't getting shot by cops, right? But from a police officer's perspective, in that moment, do you think they made the choice to, I guess, defend their lives, which is typically the choice that they made? Like, do you think that it was reasonable? I guess.
I think from the body cam footage, that kid had his hands up. There was no weapon in his hands. Maybe he had tossed a gun. It looked like he had tossed the gun right before the police encounter. That kid had his hands up, and he was shot within, I think, like 20 seconds of that police officer exiting in his car. Like, that is real quick to make the decision to end someone's life. I don't know, man. We expect ourselves to have to be as professional as possible when we're interacting with cops, and for some reason we don't have that same expectation of cops, and that's interesting. You would think that the impetus would be on the cops to be the ones that are professional and positive. I mean, Tony, you're a gun owner. Like how much of gun safety is just about how not to take someone's life with your gun. Like how important it is. Like if you ever aiming your gun at someone, it's to end their life, right? Like that's you don't shoot to hurt. You don't shoot to injure anything. You shoot to kill. Like that's the only time you should be drawing your gun and aiming it at someone.
They'll tell you in the classes too, like just because you own a gun or whatever, you hope never to even use your gun. Like that, like it's not there as a fashion statement or anything. Like I have a gun that I hope I would never have to use. Mm-hmm. But if that ever does come to it, I will use it. But,
I'll be happy to use it. All right, I don't want to derail too much. So Mateo says the cop was wrong in that moment. Like he made the wrong choice.
Also, yeah, I've got other things, but let's finish the go around.
I just want to kind of get a lay of the land before we jump into opening statements.
Go ahead, Doe.
I think the cop was in a tough position because I'm pretty sure he knew the kid had a gun on him. He either saw the gun, whether he saw the gun is I don't know. But I'm guessing that if he's chasing this person down an alleyway, he knows this guy has a pistol on him. If he doesn't see him toss it behind the fence and then he turns around and puts his hands up, I would say that it was a bad judgment call to shoot right away. But I mean, if it's a life or death situation, your adrenaline is pumping, your blood is pumping, and it's my life over your life, right? So I think there is an oh shit moment when the cop realized that he shot somebody and the kid didn't have a gun because he didn't, you know what I mean? It seemed like he was being extremely remorseful as soon as he did it. Like, but I don't think it was right. I don't think it was right. But I do think that there's like what do you do? Like, what do you do when in that moment, if it's my life versus your life and you have a gun and I don't know what your intentions are with that gun? Like, I think it's really rough.
They have tasers, they have mace, they have so many other ways to go. I don't know. Like the drawing the gun should be the absolute last thing that they do.
Even if they're getting shot at?
Was he getting shot at?
No, he's asking.
No,
us a
but I'm saying,
hypothetical.
but if his belief was
Like
that,
if a cop is getting shot at, should they pull out their mace and try to mace the shooter from afar, and then try to tase him, and then pull out their gun?
I mean, I'm not advocating for like the full on like that thing from the Watchmen, like where they had to like call into Panda and Panda had to like bust their gun open or anything. I'm not full on calling for that, but I don't know. I know that Germany statistically, like they have far less instances of police shooting civilians. Now, granted, it's not apples to oranges because you can't compare a country that has way less gun ownership. Like I think, there's no other country in the world that has more guns than people that live in the country, like the United States.
I think Israel's like much worse than America, actually. But
are they really?
I think like almost all their citizens are gun owners.
Interesting, but
and I know like. There's another country that has a lot of guns, but not comparable. But
my statistic may just be like pure numbers. It may not be like percentage of the population. I think it's probably pure numbers. But
I know, in America, we have more guns than people. So there's like just that's it, right? Like,
but guns are illegal in New York, but there's an unbelievable amount of gun violence in New York.
But I mean, like Germany, their cops train for 3 years. It is a 36-month training program in Germany. Compared to, I think it's maybe 36 weeks, 48 weeks is like the average in the United States, somewhere around there. It's definitely nowhere close to 3 years of training for their police officers. And a lot of this seems like it does come down to a failure in training. I don't personally believe that all cops are necessarily like racist. I think that there is I think there's some interesting roads to go down with that because a lot of the original like police force like tactics and whatnot did come from slave catchers back in the Civil War and whatnot, or not Civil War, but like the slavery times. Before I tangent too much, let's do Tony and Butch.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man, these guys really. What do you think, Tone?
It's tough, right? Because if you look at it from the cop's perspective, the kid did have the gun in his hand. He tossed it right before he turned around to put his hands up. I think because the cop's seeing it in his hand, and when he told him to put your hands up and he turns around to put it, he didn't initially see him throw it like behind the fence. So I think he shot a little too quick, but cops being called to a shooting in the neighborhood, they pull up and they see a suspect down in the alley and they chase or whatever. And he sees the gun in his hand, tells him to put his hands up and turn around. And being it is in Chicago and people get shot a lot in Chicago. It's like gun violence in Chicago is crazy. So, that going aside with what he's doing and being called and the whole rush, yeah, it's a tough call to just pull the trigger. He should, I would say maybe wait a couple more seconds, man. You would have seen that he wouldn't have the gun in his hands no more, that he tossed it. But, it also takes that couple seconds, kid, to turn around and shoot at the cop. So it does play a part in the shoot to kill. Now, if he had a taser, I think he could have just ran up on him, and because he already had like a blinding spotlight on the kid, like he was blinding him already. I think a quick shot of the taser gun without even saying turn around and put your hands up would have probably sufficed, right? But then
it probably wouldn't have.
He would have probably got in trouble for that as well.
Them shits barely go through jeans, and he's got on a hoodie. Like it probably wouldn't have been successful.
I don't understand how come he didn't just tackle that kid. That kid looked like he weighed about 90 pounds, sopping wet. That was a tiny little 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, but I mean,
I don't understand why he didn't just tackle him. Honestly,
because you're pulling up on him. Like,
have you seen the type of guns that these kids have over there? I'm not even
his back was turned.
Not even demonizing like the culture, but like if you watch any drill rap video, shit's got like 30-round extensions on it, like
but like
laser beams, and
he clearly didn't have like a two-handed gun. Like he was running with his hands like this, and he don't got no fucking AK in his fucking waist. Like it ain't feasible.
And his back was turned. You take someone down like in that position, it's going to be real hard for them to like twist their arm behind their back to shoot you with a gun or something.
But I mean, like he already announced himself.
Cops are trained in restraining and like taking people down. Like Why not just tackle this kid? The dude probably outweighed this kid by 100 pounds. Like,
Yeah,
why
but
not just
he
tackle him to take him
coming
down?
down the alley, he announced himself, and the kid started slowing down to a
Yeah.
stop,
And then
and
you
he
tackle
slowed
him.
down. He slowed down to a stop. I mean,
Yeah, that's when you spear him. You go full on Goldberg and lay his
Dude,
ass
no,
out.
but the
Dude,
cop
Goldberg.
himself slowed down and stopped and had his gun out. Like
But
the,
why?
He
the
slowed
when
down
he was
because the kid
flashing
slowed
him.
down. I'm saying in that moment he should have just hit him with the spear.
Yeah, but when that light strobe was flashing, that's off his gun. That's the light on his gun. They hit a button on their gun and it fucking flashes people. It's like a strobe to blind you, and that's what he was using. So him trying to spear with flashing him with the light,
I
it
mean, I
wouldn't
would
have
argue
worked.
you shouldn't be running. You probably shouldn't
With
be
your
running
gun
with
out.
your gun out in that moment. But anyways, because we're getting into the meat of the conversation. From my position, usually in these types of situations, I feel like people hate me because I tend to try to find nuance in situations and stuff like that. And so sometimes I'm like, it's hard to say, blah, blah. I don't know. In this video, man, the cop just seemed just straight up in the wrong from my point of view.
Mhm.
The first time I watched it, this is why I don't know, you guys heard me when I was watching it initially, that I was going, man, I want like a better video, blah, because it was edited, the way they were showing it was cut. It was hard to know. Like, I don't know, I just don't be trusting shit. So it's like hard to know if the audio that I'm hearing in this newscaster's cut is like from that moment in the video. Like, it's kind of hard to tell. And the first video I saw, it didn't feel that way. That's why I asked for a second link. Because the first time I saw it, I was like, nah, man, this kid is bugging out. Like, I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, my initial viewing was like, all right, man, that's pretty reasonable. Like, but then I'm like, let me get on the second link because it looked a little weird. Then the second video, it was a little bit less edited. And the cop, like you said, Tony, the guy got his gun out on the kid. He tells the kid, yo, turn around with your hands up. The kid has his hands up mid-turn. So his hands are already in the air. I feel like the cop should see this kid's hands are in the air. Why would he, like, it's weird to wait for someone to fully turn around, his hands are still up, and then you shoot him. It's like by that point in time, and I understand split-second decisions and all of that, it just seems that in the split second, the threat was gone. The guy's hands were in the air. It just seems like at that moment, you just wouldn't shoot.
Yeah.
Like, even though you do see that the kid did have a gun, the kid had a gun. In retrospect, we know, he threw it behind the fence. So when you see him do that little lean over, you're like, yep, that's the moment he threw it over the fence. It's like the cop doesn't know that, right? But again, mid-turn, he had his hands in the air. It just feels like you shouldn't have shot. I don't know. It's hard for me. It's really shitty because I already know how this is going to go. I've already seen too many people in situations like this get shot by cops. They're going to say, well, he was committing a crime. He had a gun, so the cop's in the right. And I could guarantee you that's how the case is going to play out. But I don't know. I think it's fucked up. The kid had his hands up mid-turn. Is the kid dumb? 100%. Should he be running around the city with a gun? No. All that being said, in that moment, he was complying with the officer, and then he got shot.
So
my point of view, he should have kept running then. It'd probably be alive.
So some interesting things, yeah, like shooting someone that for complying exactly with what you asked them to do, super fucked up. Also, like, apparently the reason the cops were actually like deployed out there is because Chicago and apparently DC, Adam was just telling me about this. They have this this thing in place where they have these like microphones set up all over the city, and they triangulate gunshots. So like there was no one that actually called the cops or anything for these gunshots, or at least that wasn't what initially like brought the cops out. There's some kind of system in Chicago and DC where if guns are shot, these microphones triangulate that position and they automatically deploy like the cops out there, which is wild. Like that's like some I don't know.
That's
it feels
crazy.
it feels very like cyberpunk, right? Like it feels very like that's some shit that would be in like Demolition Man.
I don't. I mean, obviously, it's not the case, but it almost feels like Minority Report. The fucking police officers are in the pre-crime division. Like they're looking for a crime that's about, they're fighting a crime that they know is about to occur. They're stopping before it ever happens. It's like, gunshots. They're already on the scene. We don't need nobody to call. I don't know. Something about that seems so logical.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a more effective way to fight crime. On the other hand, it feels unethical. Right? Something about that feels wrong. Like, so, I don't know what it is, and I mean, I got to think on this more because I feel like somebody mentioned this to me, and it might have been you a couple of days ago. But I was just thinking about this, and I'm like, man, something about that just feels wrong. Like, if cops go into a place uninvited, I don't know.
Yeah,
I have a view of police officers that I'm not saying that all cops are bad or anything like that. I have had poor experience with police. I feel like I don't ever want to deal with a cop unless I'm in a very bad situation that I'm inviting them into the situation, pretty much. Like, and of course, I'm a citizen of my area. So if another citizen of my area feels like there's a situation going on and they do want to invite the cop, well, then I'm subject to their views as well, whether I agree with it or not. Right? If they live in my neighborhood, they got right to call cops and shit like that. And it may be unfortunate, but I don't know, man. Like I had a situation. I bought this house. I got a new crib. Like I don't know, like a year and a half now, right? I bought this house. The owners that owned this house had an alarm system on the house, right? So as I'm moving in, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I'm putting a bed together. This alarm starts going off, wailing, wow, wow, wow. I'm like, what the fuck? And I remember looking at the panel when I came in. I just sort of assumed that it was like deactivated or whatever, right? Because I walked right in and nothing happened. So I go to the panel and I'm like trying to hit buttons and shit like that. And somebody starts talking to me through the panel because it's some high tech. It's got a nice display. All is a fancier shit. Someone starts talking to me to the panel, talking about, oh, what's the code? I'm like, yo, I don't know no code. I just moved into the crib. Like, I don't know shit about the security panel. Like, and they're like, oh, unfortunately, we're gonna have to deploy the police. And then the alarm kept going off. So I chilled outside for a little bit because it was too loud for me. Then I went back in. I kept building the bed. Yo, like the cops showed up, right? Fucking, I go to open the door and this cop's hand is on his holster. And I got scared. I closed and locked my door, like purely out of reaction, right? And then in that moment, I was thinking, yo, I could have just got shot. Just like that. Just like that, right? And then I opened the door and I talked to the police officer and blah, whatever. And he was, besides the fact that he walked up with a hand on his holster, like, besides that, it was pretty cordial. I explained the situation. He made me show him some paperwork and he was like, all right, boom. And he just left and he was like, whatever. And then I had to just sort of play it cool till the next day till I was able to kind of take over the security fucking like, I don't know, system or whatever the fuck. But it just goes to show kind of, I say all this to say that the point that I care most about is what Mateo mentioned, which is police. Even though we all acknowledge that they aren't getting the proper amount of training to do their job. That's my belief. I feel many people believe that. Even though I don't think that they're getting the proper amount of training to do their job, they are trained in this more than citizens are trained. And once they're deployed out into the field, they're dealing with these situations on a day-to-day basis. So they're having more experience in this situation. It feels unfortunate to me that we view police in the sense that like anything happens against them and they could do whatever they want. Whereas citizens have to behave in the perfect, like they need to follow the rule book that no one trained them for, that they've never received, but they just need to follow those rules. Whatever those rules are, they need to do them to a T. It seems kind of fucked up. It seems kind of fucked up that I'm a law-abiding citizen. I could have got shot in my crib just for locking that door. Just out of, I saw a dude with a gun, and I didn't even have that time to internalize, oh, this is the police officer from the, all that shit. Because it was like a whole hour later too. It wasn't like the cop pulled up 5 minutes after the alarm company said, oh, we're gonna have to deploy the cops. Like after I chilled out there for like 20 minutes, went back into the crib, kept building my bed, it was literally moving day. I moved all my boxes into the house, started building shit, and I had to deal with a cop. Like, I don't know, man. So all in all, man, due to experiences like this, I try to avoid police when possible. But I don't know.
That's really shitty. I would have been pissed at the people who previously owned the house. I would have been like, you guys are fucking assholes.
Dude, their fucking panel, because I was looking on their panel, you could see the Wi-Fi that it was connected to. The shit was said, make Wi-Fi great again. And I wasn't sure.
Oh, no.
I had two minds of this, right? I was like, are these some like super fucking Trump supporting like conservatives that they just wanted to make their make Wi-Fi great again? Or are they just like everybody else and it's almost like it's just funny because it's a slogan and they're just in on a joke? And like I could read it two different ways, like because I could have seen myself making my make Wi-Fi great again as a joke, but then I also would have been like, man, anybody who sees that, they might think something about me. And I would think, I would double think about that. But I'll second guess that decision. But I don't know.